Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Peterson, and I am the owner of the Washington Woobat. Thank you so much for coming to our press conference today. I'm just going to jump right into things. I would like to introduce our first head coach in franchise history, Coach Kai Guy. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm looking forward to this role. I'm very excited to be here and here to bring a winning mentality and personality to the Woobats and hopefully take us to playoffs and eventually to a championship. That is right, guys. Kai Guy, that's me, is going to be playing in a Pokemon Draft League for the first time in almost 6 years. Dating back to not even Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the OG Sun and Moon days is the last time I have played in a competitive Draft League. So I figured now was a good time to jump back into competitive Pokemon as a whole and kind of dip my toe into things as well as get kind of back in the swing of it as well. I kind of had that itch. I wanted to play competitive Pokemon again. I really had like that urge, that drive to lose to a 30% Ironhead flinch once again. So here we are. That is right, I'm going to be taking over the Washington Woobat franchise, and I'm going to be your new coach for it as a part of a Pokemon Draft League. So for those of you who don't know what a Pokemon Draft League is, basically what you do is you draft Pokemon based on tiers. For example, a Pokemon like Dragapult might be worth 20 points, and a Pokemon like, let's say, Mienfoo might be worth 1 point. Essentially, the more useful in a Pokemon battle a Pokemon is going to be worth more points. And at the start of a draft, you are given a set amount of points in order to draft your team of at least 10 Pokemon to battle the other coaches. So you can use as many or as little points as you would like, but it kind of makes more sense to spend as much as you can and then fill in the holes later as you go. As long as you don't go over your point values, that is. So after that, every week you play another one of the coaches in a 6v6 battle, bringing your best 6 against their best 6, and there is some interesting counter teaming that goes on as well. So for example, if I have a team of all fire types, my opponent's going to be like, well, I'm bringing a water type, like that kind of thing. You can counter team your opponent based on what would be a good matchup against their team. And that's kind of the basis of how draft leagues work. But I feel like at this point I have said enough about what draft leagues are and how happy I am to be doing one again. Why don't we just jump right in and meet some of our players, starting with our team captain. Let's go right to that. Alright, it is officially time to meet the team, so let's jump into our players one by one. Also include timestamps if you want to see me talk about a particular member of the team, so I'll have those linked in the description or in the pinned comment down below, so make sure you guys check those out. If you wanted to see what I think about a specific one of our team members, or if you just want to let the whole thing play through and hear me ramble on about frankly, what I think is a pretty sick draft, feel free to just kind of vibe with us. I'll have some music playing in the background as well. So, starting off, I knew for sure that one of the most important things, at least for me in draft, or I should say two of the most important things. One is you want to get a good Mega. Megas are extremely important. They are extremely useful. They have really solid utility. A lot of Pokemon that have Mega Evolutions have very strong roles that they can fill into a team. And because this is a National Dex draft, which I don't believe I mentioned earlier up until now, I'm allowed to draft a Mega Pokemon. And because of that, I really wanted to get one that I felt like I would be comfortable using, but at the same time, one that also would provide the team with a good amount of both support and hard-hitting offense at the same time. So truthfully, I wanted Mega Latios. Mega Latios was going to be my #1 pick. Unfortunately, I believe it got chosen 2 picks right before me. So as a result, I decided what I believe is the next best thing. Our team captain for this season is going to be our Mega Latios. It doesn't quite have as much bulk as Mega Latios, but it does have a lot more offensive capabilities. For example, let's take a look at this. So Mega Latios has 160 base special attack, which is ludicrously high. Combine that with its new buffed move in Luster Purge, which is now 95 base power, 100% accuracy, stab psychic move, and a 50% chance to lower the target's SPDEF by 1. So if we're picking up those SPDEF rolls on everything, we're going to be hitting harder and harder and harder each turn, which is really, really cool. Dragon Psychic is a very strong type combination. Although it is weak to common types like Dark and Ghost, it does have some decent niche utility in that it can also set up Calm Minds and be a Calm Mind sweeper if I wanted to be. Gets access to the all-important Draco Meteor, which hits like an absolute truck from base 160 special attack. Gets access to a lot of really good coverage moves like Aura Sphere. It gets Baton... I click Body Slam. It gets Baton Pass for momentum as well. And what's cool is even though its attack stat is weaker than special attack stat, being 130 versus 160, what's cool is it does get access to Dragon Dance, which does boost my attack and speed every single turn that I use it. So if I didn't want to run special Latios one week, I could run Latios as a D-Dance sweeper, and that's something I really look for in a Pokemon that I draft, is versatility. So Latios has the versatility to be an offensive sweeper on the physical side or the special side, which is phenomenal for us. It lets our opponents have to keep guessing, what am I going to run this week? Am I going to be physical? Am I going to be special? Am I going to run support? Because honestly, this Pokemon can run some good support moves as well. It gets really good type coverage moves, gets Aura Sphere, Chilling Water, who cares? If I wanted to run defensive, I realistically could. Defog with like Roost or Recover plus Chilling Water is something we could run if we realistically wanted to. And it gets really good physical and special moves to help combat this as well. Dragon Pulse, Dual Wing Beat's not bad, Earthquake, Energy Ball, gets Flip Turn, another momentum move. Hidden Power is legal, so we can use as much Hidden Power as we want. Ice Beam, gets Liquidation, Mystical Fire, there's Psychic Noise, which is a phenomenal psychic move. Prevents Pokemon from being able to heal. Size Shock, it gets Recover. It gets so much stuff that I could go on for hours just about all the different moves that this Pokemon in particular gets. And again, like I said, look at those stats. Those stats are absolutely ludicrous. The HP stat is our lowest stat at 80. Everything else is at least base 100. So I could basically run this Pokemon any way I want to any given week on a weekly basis. I love that I got this first round. And if you don't know, one of the things I really like to get in draft leagues is cores. And cores are basically Pokemon that synergize well together based on their types. So something like that might include a Fairy, Dragon, and Steel core, because those typings go really well. Or a Fire, Water, Grass core, or a Psychic, Fighting, Dark core. Basically just types that go well together and can cover each other's weaknesses and be as offensively threatening to those weaknesses as well. And this gives me both a part of my Dragon, Fairy, Steel and my Psychic, Dark, Fighting cores, being a Dragon and Psychic type, which I love to see. Getting Mega Latios first round, I will never complain about that. And we are going to call this man Noah. I didn't mean to put the H in the capital, but I guess we're rocking with it. We're going to call this man Noah. I'm going to be naming all these characters after Xenoblade, so I apologize in advance if you don't know Xenoblade. You're not going to get any of these, but oh well. So that was our first overall pick. I was towards the end of the round as well. I think it was pick probably 12 out of 16. I think there was 4 people after me. So I was pretty late in the round, but that also means I didn't have to wait long until I got to make my next pick. And going into this, there were 2 Pokemon, just 2, that I was like, I want these. Like I mentioned earlier, I wanted Mega Latios, but it wasn't as big of a want as these other 2 Pokemon. These were the 2 Pokemon that I would have been genuinely upset if I was not able to get. And one of them, we were able to get right here in round 2. And that Pokemon is Quaquaval. I love this Pokemon. It is insane in a draft format, and just insane in battle in general. It gets access to a phenomenal ability in Moxie, making it so that it can raise its physical attack stat by 1 stage every single time it knocks out the opponent. And coupled with its signature move in Aqua Step, which boosts its speed every time it uses it, it has the huge potential to just snowball games repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. Because you get a +1 from the speed, you get a +1 for picking up a KO to your attack, and then from there, things kind of just roll from there. And it's really hard to, like, combat this Pokemon when it really starts to get going. And to help it get going, it gets access to moves like Swords Dance to boost its physical attack by 2 stages. It gets access to Bulk Up as well to boost its attack and defense. It gets priority in Aqua Jet, which is very nice to have. And it also does get, I believe, Flip Turn? It does. So that's my second Pokemon with momentum already. Because Latios has both Flip Turn and Baton Pass, and Quaquaval has Flip Turn, so I have momentum on my side that I can use to help me swap out if I need to while still keeping up momentum based on what the opponent wants to bring in. And then also it gets some really good coverage moves, gets Close Combat, gets Ice Spinner. I believe it gets Knockoff. Now I want to say it does get Knockoff. That's so freaking good. I love this Pokemon to pieces. I could run it defensive with counter if I really felt like it. It does also get access to Rapid Spin, which is going to be hugely helpful because I don't remember if Latios still has Defog. Okay, it does. Which also gives me a second way of removing hazards. So now I've got Defog on Latios and Rapid Spin on Quaquaval. And like I mentioned, it gets access to Sword Stance, gets U-Turn, Wave Crash, Triple Axle, so many good moves. And just look at this attack stat, base 120. After a Sword Stance, this thing hits like an absolute truck. If I went max attack Adamant, I maxed out at 372, so times 2 would be 744 attack. That is freaking, excuse me, insane. I wanted this Pokemon so bad because I've seen it snowball games in other content creators battles, and now it is going to be on my side, and I wanted to snowball games for me. So the Washington Woobat in the second round are picking up the Quaquaval, which we will lovingly be naming Gorg. I thought about a couple other names for this, but I think Gorg was the one that fit the most. It just feels right. So, moving into round 3, I had a couple of options here. I could have gone for a more speedy Pokemon. I could go for some bulk. I could maybe try and pick up a Terra Captain or a Z-move user. I had a couple of things in mind, but what I really wanted was I wanted to snag myself a good Steel type, because Steel is one of the most defensive types in the game. Anybody who plays Pokemon can tell you that. It has a myriad of resistances and some immunities to boot. So I wanted to find a Steel type that would be solid for me, as well as be able to eat up the hits for Quaquaval as well as Mega Latios. And the one I stumbled into, I feel like I got insane value for the round. And I picked up Celesteela for 14 points. Keep in mind, 20 is the max amount of points a Pokemon is worth. And anything under 15 can use a Z-move. So I decided, well, why not draft this thing at an insane value of 14 points and make it my Z-Crystal user when I can autotomize and then double my speed and then just go in with base 107 special attack plus Beast Boost. It was a no-brainer at this point. Like, I could not think of a better way to help out the Pokemon on my team than by getting a nice Steel type that could either be run really defensive, again with that versatility, or I could run it offensive. I really want to push the versatility of my team, and that, getting Celesteela, helps out tremendously with this. This Pokemon gets so many insane moves too. Its strongest flying move is Air Slash, which isn't amazing, but it makes up for that with a bunch of other coverage moves. And its physical and special attack stats are not too far off, being 101 and 107 respectively. So, because of that, I could run this physical, special, or even mixed if I wanted to. So, it does get Body Slam to if I want to throw some Paralysis around. Earthquake to hit fellow Steel types is pretty nice. Gets access to Explosion if I just need to, like, get something out of here and I'm terrified of it. Energy Ball is pretty good coverage as well. Gets access to fire moves like Fire Blast and Flamethrower to catch unsuspecting Steel types as well as being able to hit decent Grass types and stuff. Flash Cannon for stab is phenomenal. Giga Drain for recovery. It also does get Heavy Slam. This Pokemon weighs a metric ton, so because of that, it's going to be hitting super hard with its attacks. I get Iron Defense. I don't believe I get Body Press, sadly. Otherwise, this Pokemon would be broken. But I do get Iron Defense if I want to boost my defense up, and I get Leech Seed for recovery. I could run Meteor Beam with Power Herb if I felt so inclined to get my special attack boost. It does get access to Rock Slide and Seed Bomb on the physical side as well. I could Steel Beam if I just need to get myself gone while also hitting super hard. Steel Roller to get rid of terrain is pretty nice, and it does get access to Toxic, which is going to be very good on a defensive Steel Pokemon. I love this thing's moveset. There is no reason why I couldn't just run this every week with Flamethrower, Air Slash, and Flash Cannon with like a Fire EMZ. Like, honestly, this moveset looks perfect. Like, if I just want to run like a late game sweeper, get my speed up with Autotomize, and then go in with some Beast Boost and everything, I can absolutely do that because this Pokemon hits like a freaking truck once it gets going. Again, same thing with Gorg, the Quaquaval. It can snowball in a moment's notice. But it can also be really defensive and stop the opponent in their tracks. Again, pushing that versatility, which I love. I could not be happier I got this thing for the crazy value I got. And we are going to call Celesteela Poppy Buster. So, you'll notice that our Fairy Dragon Steel Core is approximately 2/3 of the way complete. We've got our Dragon, we got our Steel, but we don't have a Fairy type yet. And there were a couple Pokemon I was debating between for this. One of those was Sylveon. I thought it would be good for a Wish Passer to pass wishes to my team. It's another Pokemon that gets Baton Pass. But I also was looking at Enamorus. Enamorus was a Pokemon that I thought could be sneakily good, and it had decent value for it as well. I believe it was also 15 points. so I could have gotten that here, but I decided, why don't I go for something a little bit different? Something I've never really used either in competitive or in Draft League at all, even though it's been around since the original days of Pokemon. And that Pokemon is Clefable. I have never used this thing that I can recall in Draft or in competitive, but it is one of the best Pokemon of all time. There's a reason that it has been consistently OU in just about every generation up to this point. I think it's UU right now, and it is shining in the UU tier. People were flabbergasted when this thing dropped to UU, but power creep, that whole thing, whatever. But either way, this Pokemon is phenomenal. I could not be happier to get this. It has 2 phenomenal abilities in Magic Guard, making it so that it cannot be damaged by anything other than direct attack. So I won't take Stealth Rock damage, I won't take Leech Seed, I can't take poison damage or burn damage, anything like that. And it also has Unaware, which lets me ignore the opponent's stat changes when I'm taking or doing damage. So for example, if an opponent sets up 3 Calm Minds, normally they're going to be at +3 or essentially 2.5 times attack. But because this Pokemon has Unaware, it basically just says, I don't see it, therefore it doesn't exist. So because of that, I get hit as if it didn't have those boosts. And the same is true for the defensive side as well. So if I hit something that has +3 special defense, it'll be hit as if it had no boosts. So it has 2 phenomenal abilities that I can choose to run depending on the week-to-week basis. And this Pokemon can also be very versatile as well. Its stats, when you look at them, might not be all that impressive. 95 HP, 73 defense, 95 special attack, 90 Spadef. Not amazing looking on the board when its highest attack, or its highest stat, excuse me, is only 95. But it's the fact that coupled with its abilities plus its amazing typing in Pure Fairy really helps this Pokemon be insane. And it gets some phenomenal moves as well. It gets Alluring Voice, which will 100% confuse a target who boosted their stats on the previous turn, which is very nice. I could catch an unsuspecting sweeper off guard by making them, after they Swords Dance, have to roll a 50-50 on whether or not they're even able to hit us, and then that could either give me momentum into one of my own team members or allow me to knock it out with like a Stab Moonblast or something. It also gets Aromatherapy to cure my team of all status conditions, so if I am worried about like Toxic Spikes or anything like that when getting poisoned, I can just Aromatherapy and boom, poison's all gone. Another Pokemon that gets Baton Pass for momentum. Like I mentioned this with Sylveon before as well. I want another Pokemon that got momentum, and this thing getting Baton Pass is super nice. Gets access to Calm Mind, which will boost my special attack and special defense. This move allows Clefable to go from being a pretty solid tanky Pokemon that can kind of just eat up hits for days and heal off the team and be support, to essentially becoming a late game sweeper, because it can really snowball the opponent if you're not careful. Getting that special attack and special defense boost, going on and on and on, being able to recover off any damage thanks to Unaware, or not being able to take chip damage because of Magic Guard. It is super, super nice to be able to just sweep late game with this Pokemon with Calm Mind plus Moonblast, Flamethrower, and a recovery move. Also does get access to counter if I want to run this thing physically defensive and let it eat up the physical hit. I can use that to kind of hit back at the opponent. It gets Draining Kiss as well as a form of recovery. It does get Drain Punch, whoop-de-doo, who cares. Encore is nice to lock the opponent into a certain move. For example, if they're setting up a Dragon Dance or something, I can then Encore them into that, so they have to keep clicking Dragon Dance while I slowly chip them away with my rest of my team. Get some good fire coverage is when Flamethrower and Fire Blast, as well as learning Focus Blast as well. Future Sight is not to be underestimated, because it can catch you off guard. Like, sometimes you forget that it actually happens, and then lo and behold, a couple of turns later, you're taking some psychic damage from a base 120 psychic attack, which is really freaking solid. It also does get Heal Bell in addition to Aromatherapy to cure status ailments. Healing Wish is nice. I can sacrifice Clefable to heal up another team member. Gets Ice Beam as well as Knockoff. Gets access to both screens, Light Screen and Reflect. Another Pokemon that gets Meteor Beam if I want to be cheeky. Moonblast is just super good, and Moonlight to recover off the damage is very, very nice. Then also does get access to Seismic Toss, so I want to guarantee a certain amount of damage every single time. And it gives me a Stealth Rocker, which hazards are extremely important in competitive Pokemon. at least in my opinion. Other people may disagree, especially with the introduction of heavy-duty boots, but they come in handy. They definitely allow for chip damage to weaken the opponent down. And I plan to take on full advantage of that because an extra 12% on the Pokemon switching in is not to be overlooked. It is super helpful. And it also does get Teleport in addition to Baton Pass. So if I wanted to get a guaranteed slow momentum off, I could, instead of running Baton Pass, run Teleport to make sure I go last and be able to react to what the opponent is doing. And also it does get access to T-Wave and Toxic as well as Trick. It gets so many moves, man. It gives me Wish. It can be a Wish Passer. It's a phenomenal Pokemon. I don't know what else to say besides that. It is insane that I got this thing round 4. I could not be happier to have this thing in my team. And we are going to be calling this Tora. Alright. This brings me to my 5th pick. So as I mentioned, there were 2 Pokemon when I was doing this draft that I was like, I need these. If I don't get these, I will be upset. And Gorg the Quaquaval was one of them, and the other one was Oricorio. I wanted this Pokemon so freaking bad, it's not even funny. I wanted this thing so bad. So what's cool is I get, when you draft Oricorio in the league I am part of, which I believe is called the DABL or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, the way they have it set up is when you draft Oricorio, you don't draft the particular form. So I don't draft Oricorio Pom-Pom or Oricorio Sensu or Bylay. When I draft Oricorio, I get access to every single Oricorio form in one. So, and you might be thinking to yourself, that's not really a huge deal because, honestly, like, the only real difference between them is just their primary typings. But that is a huge deal. I basically get 4 different type combinations for the price of 1. And this Pokemon only cost me 8 points. And what's even better is this is one of my Terra Captains. And it is allowed to Terrasilize into any type that it wants. So, for example, if I wanted to run Terra Ground on this thing with Dancer, Quiver Dance, Roost, Revelation Dance, and Hurricane, I can basically do that every single week. And the opponent is going to have no idea what Terra type I want to ground. Maybe next week I want to run Terra Psychic. Maybe next week I want to run Terra Fairy. Maybe the next week I want to run Terra Dragon. There's so much I could run on a week-to-week basis with this Pokemon, and it is such a good late-game special sweeper because Quiver Dance is one of the best moves in the entire game. It boosts your special attack, special defense, and speed stage all by 1, and it lets you kind of just snowball from there, because if you're in on a special attacker, they're going to be hitting you on the special side while your stats getting boosted, so you're going to be taking less damage and less damage each time, and then being able to heal it off with Roost. It's another Pokemon that can really snowball. It is, I could not be happier to have this thing. And its stats might not be amazing, but once it gets going, thanks to Quiver Dance, it is kind of hard to stop. Again, another Pokemon that can snowball. It is phenomenal. I could not be happier to get this Pokemon, like, honestly. This was the other Pokemon where I was like, I need this. I need this in my life. And it does get access to a couple of interesting extra moves. It gets access to Alluring Voice, so if I wanted to use that on this thing, I could with, like, Terra Fairy. Gets Baton Pass. I cannot pass stats, but I can use this as momentum, so I can't Quiver Dance up and Baton Pass into something, but I could just Baton Pass for momentum if I wanted to. Another Pokemon that gets access to Defog, so I can remove hazards. Gets access to all the hidden powers. Hurricane, Quiver Dance have already sung their praises. Revelation Dance changes based on my type, and that includes when I Terra. So if I went Terra Ground, Revelation Dance would become a Ground type move. If I went Terra Dark, Revelation Dance would become a Dark type move, so on and so forth. So basically, I get a guaranteed stab on whatever Terra type I decide to bring, which is phenomenal. Then outside that, also gets good utility moves like Tailwind and Taunt to boost my speed, as well as make it so the opponent can only attack me and can't do any setup. And it does get access to U-Turn as well for just a little bit of momentum here and there. I could not be happier, man. I wanted this thing so bad, and I'm so happy that I got it. I've seen this Pokemon put in work in draft leagues and competitive, and I'm hoping that your Washington Woobat can do the exact same. So we are going to name this Uni. Uni, welcome to the squad. Could not be happier to have you here. Alright, so I was messaging a friend during this draft, and one thing that he recommended was something for ice types, mainly like freeze dry specifically, because I don't really have anything that can resist it. because Gorg is weak to Freeze Dry, No is weak to Ice, or Uni's weak to Ice, and then Poppy Buster and Tora also do not resist Ice. And he also was saying that I should get another physically offensive Pokemon as well as a strong ground type. So I was trying to think, a Pokemon that's physically offensive, is ground type, and resists Ice. I think I have the perfect one in mind. And we decided to pick up Mamoswine, another Pokemon I don't believe I have ever used in Draft League. But it has a phenomenal stat spread here. Base 110 HP makes it deceptively bulky, especially if I want to give it like an Assault Vest or something. It also does have a extremely solid base 130 physical attack, which caps out all the way at 394, which is insanely high. And it does have a really good ability in Thick Fat. So if you don't know, Thick Fat makes it so the Pokemon takes half damage from fire and ice moves. So normally this Pokemon is weak to fire and neutral to ice. But because of Thick Fat, I am now neutral to fire and technically I resist ice, while also giving me a very solid offensive stab combination in ground and ice. I get Earthquake, I get Icicle Crash, Body Press if I wanted to run that. I also get Endeavor, I get Freeze Dry to hit off opposing bulky waters. Heavy Slam's pretty solid, high horsepower, I get Ice Shard for priority, Iron Head, Knockoff. There's so many good moves. I could run Rock Blast, Loaded Dice if I wanted to. Another Stealth Rocker, which is extremely important for this team. This Pokemon has so many good moves. I could even run Trailblaze. If I wanted to run like a late game sweeping Mamoswine with Trailblaze, dude, I could do it. Quote me on it. It'll happen at least once, I guarantee you. But I definitely need something to resist ice. I need something to hit really hard because a Pokemon type they should always have on a team is a ground type. Ground types are so good. They hit so many different types for super effective damage, and they are the only type that are immune to electric attacks. So it's important to have one on your team so your opponent can't just freely Volt Switch around on you forever. I really wanted a really solid ground type, and I think we've got it here in Mamoswine. The combination of ground and ice stab hits so hard on so many different types throughout the game. I could not be happy to have this guy on my team, and we are going to call this Mamoswine Wulfric. Alright, so this is our team so far. We've gotten 6 Pokemon. We've got Noah, Gorg, Poppy Buster, Tora, Uni, Wulfric. I don't know why I said that as if there was another one coming after that. But we still have to have a minimum of at least 10 Pokemon. Normally, you can only bring 6 to a Pokemon battle, but you have a team of 10 that you can choose between about who you're bringing on a week-to-week basis. So I had 4 more picks I had to make after this, and you might see them on screen in a second, but I'll just go through them real quick. So, as we move into the late rounds, I found myself with a surprisingly decent amount of points left, but still 4 picks I had to make. And there were a lot of Pokemon I really wanted. For example, I really wanted Pecharunt, but I didn't think I'd be able to afford it because of the steep points requirement coupled with that plus the Pokemon I'm about to pick here, so I decided to pass on it. I was looking at Pokemon like Skeledirge, like Entei, like Arcanine, Pokemon like Gengar, like Enamorus, like I mentioned earlier. What else? Iron Hands was one that I was looking at. There were so many Pokemon I was looking at. Because one thing I've noticed about my team is that we're not the fastest. Our highest speed tier right now is base 110 with Mega Latios. So I want something that could give me a better speed tier and also possibly give me hazards and maybe even be one of the strongest Pokemon at a certain point in the metagame. And I was sitting there at 16 points, and I decided to go ahead and bite on it because I love this Pokemon to pieces. It is one of my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon, and it was the first Pokemon I picked when I entered my first playthrough of the Paldea region, being Sprigatito, the final evolution of which is Meowscarada. I wanted this thing so bad, it's not even funny, man. As soon as I saw it was available, because I did not have a Dark type yet, I did not have a Grass type yet, I wanted something that had Stab knockoff, and I saw this thing available, and the stars aligned, and somehow this thing came back to me all the way in round 7 when I did not believe it was going to happen. Like, at all. I could easily run this thing with a Choice Band, I could run it Scarfed, Expert Belt to take advantage of its wide variety of coverage, Heavy Duty Boots so I don't end up taking any hazard damage, Life Orb. There's so many various items I could run on this thing. It also has the ability Protean, which changes the Pokemon's type to the move that it is using. So if I go for Knockoff, I become a pure Dark type. If I go for Play Rough, I become a Fairy type. It only happens once per switch-in because it did get nerfed, but it's still a very solid ability, basically guaranteeing you stab on the first attack that you go for. So it is very solid, and it will be more than likely what we run every single week. Now, what's great about this Pokemon is all of the different coverage moves that it gets. It gets Acrobatics for a physical flying type move. Like, let's say I wanted to run, like, I don't even know, man. Like, Figgy Berry Acrobatics or something. With, like, I don't think this thing gets Sword Stance or anything. But if I want to run special, it gets Nasty Plot, so I could do that. Because it does get some good coverage moves like Dark Pulse and Aura Sphere. And Energy Ball for stab. Its main bread and butter, though, is going to be Flower Trick. It's base 70, Grass-type move. It's also its, what's it called? Signature move. And does not check accuracy, so it's a guaranteed hit and always also results in a critical hit. So if Pokemon tries to set up defensively on us, we can guarantee a critical hit on it thanks to this move. And we will not check its defense when we do that. It also does get access to Hone Claws to raise attack and accuracy. Gets Stab Knockoff, which is just so good in competitive Pokemon, it's not even funny. Gets Lash Out for whatever reason, who cares. Low Kick for fighting coverage is pretty solid. Like I mentioned, it does get access to Nasty Plot. It does only have base 81 special attack, but with Nasty Plot boost, it's not that bad. Pretty solid physical grass move in Petal Blizzard, but I mean, Flower Trick is just infinitely better, so we're going to run it almost every week. Play Rough for a solid fairy move is very nice for extra coverage. Does get access to priority quick attack as well, so that's pretty nice. I thought it got Sucker Punch. Okay, yeah, it does get Sucker Punch. It gets Sucker Punch to catch the foe off guard. Also gives me a Spiker. I can set up spikes on the opponent's side of the field and make them take chip damage when they come in. Another Pokemon gets access to Taunt, so that way it can prevent opposing Pokemon from setting up. Thunder Punch for coverage is pretty decent as well for flying types. I could Throat Chop if I need to stop opposing Pixelate Hyper Voices. I get Trailblaze to boost my speed, T-Spikes to set up on the opponent's side of the field, and also U-Turn for momentum and Triple Axle for ice coverage. This Pokemon is so freaking good. I could not be happier to have this thing. Base 110 attack is super solid. Its other stats might not be amazing, but it does give me that base 123 speed tier that I was looking for. A phenomenal speed tier that puts me all the way at 379 speed. It makes it a lot easier to outrun opposing Pokemon threats. So I was super excited to get this thing, especially as late as I did. I could not be happier that it's on my team. And Meowscarada is going to be on the squad. We're going to be calling you Nia. Alright, so we're at 7 out of 10. We have 3 picks left to go. So, I was thinking about things, and I wanted a Pokemon that probably had access to Intimidate, because Intimidate is one of the best abilities in the game, and I wanted a Pokemon that had this and also could be a very solid defensive wall with a decently reliable recovery, but also some good utility. And when I'm picking out a Pokemon, one thing I was kind of missing was a bulky water. And because of that, I decided to try and fill a hole here, because Quaquaval, I don't really want that to be my bulky water, I want that to be my late game sweeper. So because of that, one Pokemon I decided to look at was Qwilfish. Qwilfish is surprisingly bulky thanks to its Intimidate ability. This lowers the opponent's physical attack stat by 1 stage when it switches in, and makes it so it can eat up physical hits easier. Because its base 65 HP is not that great, but base 85 defense coupled with Intimidate is actually really, really solid. And what's great about Qwilfish here is it also does get a wide variety of coverage moves, and it's pretty fast to boot. Like, base 85 speed for a bulky Pokemon is not all that bad, all things considered. So it does get Aqua Jet for priority, if I wanted to go that route, maybe run an offensive Qwilfish 1 week. Barb Barrage is a 50% chance to poison and doubles in power if the foe is already poisoned, coupled with, I believe it gets them. Where are they? Where are they? Am I insane? Gets Toxic Spikes, so I could set up Toxic Spikes and then Barb Barrage for double damage on the opponent that switches into them. That would be super cool to run. I could run Chilling Water 1 week to make it extra defensive, because this also lowers the opponent's physical attack stat by 1. So I could use that to my advantage and just make them permanently trapped in a cycle of not being able to boost their attack high enough, while also taking damage from Chilling Water and the Toxic Spikes that I can inevitably set up. Does also get Curse if I want to make this thing a Curse sweep, which could be honestly hilarious. Destiny Bond, if things get out of hand, I just need this thing to take a hit. We can do that. Another Pokemon that gets access to Flip Turn, so it gives me more momentum, as well as a Stab Gunk Shot as well. Even though it's only 80 accuracy, it's still very solid. Haze to get rid of opposing stat changes is also really nice, to not have to worry about things getting out of hand. Gets good coverage moves like Ice Beam, even though it only has a base 55 special attack stat. Liquidation will probably be its physical water move of choice, because it has a 20% chance to lower the foe's HP, or excuse me, defense. It also gets Pain Split as well to be able to get some decent recovery. Poison Jab is pretty solid. And like I mentioned, it does get both spikes and toxic spikes, allowing it to get some decent utility going and get hazards up on the opponent's side of the field, while also absorbing absorbing toxic spikes from my side of the field if the opponent would choose to set them up because of its poison typing. It also does get access to Thunder Wave and Toxic, so I can spread a little bit of status around here and there. T-Spikes are phenomenal as well, like I've already mentioned. Yeah, I was really excited to get this thing. I could not be happier to have it, man. I really wanted a decent bulky water. I wanted something with Intimidate, something that could check physical attackers, and this is absolutely it. And we are going to be naming this Qwilfish Praxis. Alright, 2 more picks to get through. So, one thing you guys might have noticed is I don't have a fire type. I do not have a fire type at the moment, and we are pretty late into the game. We are on round number 9, and Kai still did not pick up a fire type Pokemon. And there were a couple things that I was considering, like I mentioned. I was looking at Skeledirge, I was looking at Arcanine, I was looking at Entei, I looked at Magmar, Magmortar. There were a bunch of Pokemon that I had my eye on. The main issue was I had 5 points left. Between Meowscarada, Mamoswine, and Qwilfish, my points went from pretty good to plummeting. I had 5 points left to make 2 picks. But I was relying on getting some value for those 5 points. So what I decided to do was pick up a 3-pointer and a 2-pointer as my last 2 picks. And the Pokemon I was able to get my eye on and pick up, I think I got really good value for them at the levels that I did. So like I mentioned with that fire typing that I was missing, one other thing you might notice is I currently have 2 out of the 3 Paldea starters. I have Quaquaval, I have Meowscarada. So even though Skeledirges might be a little expensive, what if we completed the trio and picked up Crocalor? And that's exactly what I did. I picked up the little lizard with an egg on his head, Crocalor. I am honestly surprised at how good this thing is. Like, honestly, it has no reason to be as good as it is. For one thing, it can hold the Eviolite, which if you're not sure what that does, Eviolite essentially multiplies your defenses times 1.5, making you bulkier than you would be. So for example, if I was max defense on this, I would be at 255 defense at the moment. So if I decided, I want to up that even more with Eviolite, I would multiply that 255 times 1.5. So that would be about another, I think it's 255 divided by 2 would be 177, I want to say. So that would put me at 355, like 433 defense when you multiply this times 1.5. Which, think about that, 433 physical defense on a stage 1 Pokemon is kind of ludicrous when you think about it. Coupled with a really solid base 81 HP, putting me maxed out all the way at 366 HP, this Pokemon eats up physical hits for days. It's kind of insane, and even better is it also gets unaware, which makes it so I can ignore opponent's stat changes. Another unaware Pokemon just like Clefable. So this Pokemon can eat up hits on the physical side for days, and even better, I can make it whatever typing I want, because this is my other Terra Captain. This one cost me 3 points, you had a total of 12. Oricorio cost me 8, and Crocalor cost me 3, so I kind of ate the -1 on the Terra point, but oh well, who cares? Because getting this thing for the value I did was too good to pass up. I can Terra into any typing that I want as well. I could run Fairy, I could run Terra Water, I could run Terra Ice if I needed to, for whatever freaking reason. More than likely, it'll probably be Terra Water, Terra Fairy, Terra Grass, or Terra Fire. Maybe Terra Steel if I'm feeling a little bit shiesty. But yeah, I feel like I got some really good value on this thing, especially because of its very good moveset variety. It gets another access to Encore, so I can stop opposing setup. It does get access to some solid fire moves, including Flamethrower. Does not get Torch Song, because that is Skeledirge's move, unfortunately, but still, pretty solid for what we do get. Also does get access to Overheat, Hyper Voice, Heat Wave. Gets a little bit of recovery thanks to Slack Off, which is very nice. And also does get Will-O-Wisp, which I really like, because this has an 85% chance to hit, and is just a guaranteed burn on the target. So, if you don't know, burn lowers your opposing Pokemon's physical attack stat. It cuts it in half, essentially. So already, this Pokemon is going to be eating up hits on the physical side for days and being able to heal itself off with Slack Off. But now, if I burn physical threats too, I'm going to be taking even less damage while they take chip damage every turn, and I just get to laugh it off as if I'm feeling nothing. This Pokemon can eat up hits for days thanks to these combinations of everything. I could not be happy to get the value that I did for this thing at just 3 points, and we're calling you Newt. Last but not least, you know it wasn't a Kag I draft if I didn't draft a Ghost type. Ghost is my favorite type. If you don't know that, well, now you do. It is by far my favorite typing. It used to be Water. It is now far and away Ghost. I love Ghost type Pokemon. I think the lore behind them is some of the best, and they have some of the best designs I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. And honestly, what better way to throw it back than with the original Ghost? And I don't mean Gengar. I mean Haunter. Haunter was my final pick here in round 10. Cost me 2 points. Gives me a Ghost Poison type, while also having Levitate, making it so I cannot be hit by ground type moves like Earthquake, Earth Power, Stomping Tantrum, anything like that, so I don't have to worry about anything from those. Is another Pokemon that can hold an Eviolite, because it can still evolve, giving me a little bit of extra Bolt because those defenses suck, for lack of a better word. But look at that solid offensive prowess. Base 115 special attack is higher than some of our other Pokemon we've seen. Like, Qwilfish's base physical attack is 95. Haunter's base special attack is 115 with 95 speed. That's pretty solid for a stage 1 Pokemon. I'm not going to complain about that at all. And Ghost is a very spammable type if your opponent does not have a normal type lying around, because it's only resisted by Dark, and it's immune to normal types and stuff. So because of that, if opponent doesn't have a normal type or a Dark type, I can just freely spam Shadow Ball, or what I really like is I can just spam Hex as much as I want, because I have multiple Pokemon that can set up Toxic Spikes, being Nia the Meowscarada, Praxis the Qwilfish, and I believe, let me make sure I'm not a fool, Haunter gets them too. I have 3 T-Spikers. So I can just freely throw those around on the opponent's side of the field and then not have to worry about just clicking stabs Hex on everybody. It's phenomenal. Especially if I knock off their if they're running heavy duty boots with like Meowscarada or Clefable or whoever, running a Hex and doubling the damage, it's a 130 special attack move, special ghost move if they have a status ailment. So if I get a burn with Crocalor, or if they get poisoned by my T-Spikes, they're getting a Hex, and it's going to be 130 base power before stab. After stab, this is a base power, let me do some quick math, of 195. This is an almost 200 power ghost type move. That is freaking dude. And it also does get access to some pretty good coverage moves as well. It gets Curse if I want to cut my own HP to make the opponent take chip damage. Dazzling Gleam for fairy coverage is pretty nice. It gets Destiny Bond if things get out of hand. Encore again to make it so we can lock the opponent into a certain move. Energy Ball for grass coverage is pretty nice. Focus Blast lets me hit dark types. Does get Giga Drain for a little bit of extra healing. If I want to run Haze on it, I realistically could to get rid of opposing stat changes. Gets access to Nasty Plot to double its special attack stat. This Pokemon is so underrated, especially at just 2 points. And I also gets Pain Split for pretty good recovery. Gets Psychic for psychic coverage. Shadow Ball, Hex, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave. Gets access to Taunt to stop opposing setup, and as well as electric coverage with Thunderbolt and Thunder if I'm feeling real shiesty. As well as getting ways of tricking the opponent and going for Will-O-Wisp as well. So much utility, so much versatility all around our entire team. I could not be happier about every Pokemon that we have drafted. I could not believe I got the value that I did out of everybody. And Haunter is going to be our last pick on the team. And we're going to name you Percival. So, that is it. That is your Washington Woobat for this draft league, y'all. I feel like I've made a pretty good, I feel like I put a pretty good squad together. Let me know what Pokemon you are looking forward to seeing me using. Let me know who your favorite team member is. Make sure you let me know that in the comments. I'm really excited to get back into this. I'm happy to be playing competitive Pokemon again. Hopefully things go well for us, and I hope that you guys will be cheering on your Washington Woobat all throughout the 8-week season. And if we make playoffs, then we'll be going even longer than that. I hope you'll be cheering us on all throughout it. If you did enjoy this little draft breakdown and the little skit, I guess you'd call that the beginning, please leave a like on it. It's just a fun little thing I'm trying to do, just to like kind of make things a bit more interesting for this kind of thing. Because I know competitive Pokemon's not everyone's jam, so I'm trying to inject a little bit of my personality into it So that's kind of why I decided to do that way. Yeah, leave a like on the video. It helps me out a ton. And if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe. We're on our way to 400 subscribers. It's my end of the year goal, and I'd really appreciate if you could help me get there. And if you want to see more competitive Pokemon style content on this channel, subscribing will help you do that, and will help me know that's something you guys are interested in as well. So I'd really appreciate it if you could help me get to that 400 subscriber milestone, while also letting me know that's something you'd be interested in me continuing in the future. But I think that's it for you guys. All I have to say now is go Woobat. I will do my best to bring home a trophy, or at least try my best to compete. It's been a little while since I've been in the competitive scene, but I will try my best to make sure you guys have a team you can be proud of and a coach that you can be even more proud of. So that is where I'll take your leave, and I will wrap things up right here. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and all I gotta say is go Woobat, baby. Until next time, peace.